That was Amara. She was a single mom who had just lost her job because some mean people at her work told a huge lie about her. She was down to her very last $18. That's it. No more money in the bank, no more money in her purse. Just $18 to buy dinner for her son, Kai, who was 7 years old and always hungry. But then, something crazy happened. At the bus stop, she met a man named Gene. He looked like he was having an even worse day than she was. He was shaking, his clothes were messy, and he didn't even have enough coins to get home. Amara looked at her $18, her dinner money, and she looked at Gene. She knew if she gave it to him, she'd have nothing. But her heart told her to help. So, she gave him every single penny. The next morning, everything changed. 5 giant, shiny black SUVs, the kind you see in superhero movies, pulled up to her tiny apartment. Out stepped Gene, but he didn't look messy anymore. He was wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than a house. He looked powerful. He looked like a king. Gene wasn't just a regular guy, he was a legendary boss of a massive organization. He had been set up by some bad people who tried to take his power, and when he was at his lowest point, Amara, a total stranger, had saved him with that $18. I don't understand, Amara whispered, her head spinning like a top. Why are you here? Why are you
Like, comment and share. For more, subscribe now, like, comment and share. For more.
Because, Amara, when I had absolutely nothing, you gave me everything you had. It was only $18 to the world, but to you, it was the world. I want to know why. Amara sat down on her old, squeaky couch. I don't know, she shrugged. You looked like you were barely hanging on. I know what that feels like. I couldn't just walk away and leave you there. Gene leaned in. He had a secret. I know you lost your job, Amara. I know they lied about you. I do my homework. I know you're raising Kai all by yourself. He paused, his voice getting serious. I need someone I can trust. Someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. I want you to come work for me. Amara's eyes went wide. A job. Like. A real job. A real one, Gene promised. With enough money so Kai can have the best life ever. I'm not doing this because I feel sorry for you. I'm doing it because you are the bravest person I've ever met. Amara looked at Kai, who was playing with a toy car on the floor. She looked back at Gene. This was her second chance. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Amara's first day was like stepping into a movie set. Gene's headquarters was a giant, high-tech building with security cameras and people walking around looking very important. Amara felt a little nervous in her simple clothes, but Gene walked right up to her. Ignore the people staring, he whispered. They don't know how strong you are yet. He took her into a room filled with computers and files. He introduced her to a stern-looking man named Minjun. Minjun didn't look happy. He crossed his arms and asked, Boss, why is she here? What can she even do? Gene's voice turned to ice. She is someone I trust. That is more important than anything. Gene explained the problem. A man named Quan, who was supposed to be Gene's friend, had betrayed him. Quan had set a trap for Gene, tried to take over the whole business, and told everyone Gene was gone forever. I need proof, Gene said, sliding a thick folder toward Amara. I need you to look at these papers with fresh eyes. Find out where the money went. Amara might not have known about mafia business, but she knew exactly what it felt like to be lied to. She spent days and nights looking at the papers. She found patterns. She found hidden bank accounts. She was like a detective. One evening, she spread the papers out on Gene's big desk. I found it, she shouted. Look here. Quan has been stealing money for months. He didn't just want you gone. He wanted to steal everything you built. Gene smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile. We have him now. Because of Amara's hard work, Gene was able to stop Quan and fix his organization. Suddenly, everyone in the building started treating Amara like a hero. They realized she wasn't just a poor mom, she was the smartest person in the room. A few weeks later, life felt totally different. Mommy, is Gene coming to my soccer game? Kai asked, bouncing up and down in his brand new uniform. I don't know, honey, Amara said. He's a very busy man. But when they got to the field, there he was. Gene wasn't wearing a fancy suit or riding in a scary SUV. He was wearing a hoodie and sneakers, looking like a regular dad. When Kai saw him, he screamed with joy and ran for a hug. You came. Kai cheered. I promised, didn't I? Jean laughed, picking him up. During the game, Jean cheered louder than anyone. When Kai scored a goal, Jean jumped up and down like a kid. Afterward, they all walked through the park with ice cream cones. You're doing an amazing job with him, Jean said softly to Amara. I grew up with nothing, Amara. I built my whole empire, so I would never feel weak again. But watching you and Kai, I think I missed the point. What do you mean? Amara asked. Power is boring if you're alone, Jean said. You have what I've been looking for. You have love. You have a family. Amara's heart started thumping fast. For the last few weeks, Jean had been helping Kai with homework and coming over for Sunday breakfast. Kai was even drawing pictures of the three of them together. Amara realized something that scared her and made her happy all at once. She was falling in love with the big, powerful boss. And even better, he was falling in love with them, too. She had started the week with only $18, but by being kind, she ended up with a whole new life, and a real-life superhero to share it with. But every time Jean smiled at her, every time he looked at Kai with such gentle affection, she felt herself drowning. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Kai drew another picture of their little family, with "My family" written in wobbly letters at the top. That night, after Kai was asleep, Amara sat in the dark, staring at the drawing. She couldn't keep pretending she had to tell Jean the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Saturday's game was against their biggest rivals. Jean arrived early with a poster he'd made with Kai's jersey number on it. He and Amara watched from the bleachers, the comfortable silence between them charged with unspoken emotions. When Kai scored the winning goal, Jean grabbed Amara's arm, his face alight with pure joy. In that moment, looking at him, she knew she couldn't keep her feelings inside any longer. After the game, while Kai was celebrating with his team, Amara turned to Jean. I need to tell you something, she said, her hands trembling. And I need you to just listen. She took a deep breath. I'm in love with you. I know I shouldn't be. I know who you are, what you do, and that this is probably the craziest thing I could ever say. But I can't keep pretending. Kai draws pictures of us as a family, and my heart breaks a little more each time because I want it so badly it hurts. The silence stretched between them. I understand. If this changes everything, she continued, her voice thick with emotion, I'll do whatever you want. I just couldn't keep lying to you. Are you finished? He finally asked. She nodded, unable to speak. He stepped closer. Good, because I've been waiting for 2 months for you to say that. What? Amara, you are the most frustrating woman I have ever met, he said, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Do you think I come to every soccer game for just anyone? Do you think I spend my Sundays in your tiny apartment drinking bad coffee because I'm being charitable? I've been in love with you since the day you handed me your last dollar at that bus stop. Since you looked at me like I was a person who mattered, not just a mafia boss. You love me. Yes. You idiot, he said, a sound that was half laugh, half sob escaping his lips. I love you. I love Kai. I love the way you're kind even when the world has given you every reason not to be. And then he kissed her. Right there on the bleachers. He kissed her with a passion and a tenderness that left her breathless. Poor single mom gave Korean Mafia boss her last $18 the next day. 5 SUVs surrounded her house. Amara clutched her last $18. It was an insane, completely insane thing to do. An hour ago she had been fired, framed for a theft she didn't commit. Now this crumpled handful of bills was the only thing standing between her 7-year-old son, Kai, and an empty stomach for dinner. But the man beside her at the bus stop kept recounting his own meager collection of coins, his hands trembling with a desperation she knew all too well. She couldn't just sit there and watch him suffer. So she gave him the money. All of it. With tears in his eyes, the stranger thanked her and boarded the bus. Amara began the long walk home, a knot forming in her stomach as she tried to figure out how she would explain to Kai why there was nothing to eat. The following morning, a sharp knock echoed through their small apartment. When Amara opened the door, her heart stopped. 5 gleaming black SUVs were parked along the street, and from them emerged men in sharp dark suits. Walking towards her with an air of immense power was the man from the bus stop. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored black mafia suit with a crisp white-collared shirt, looking like he could buy and sell the entire city without a second thought. "We need to talk," he said, his voice calm but firm. Amara knew in that moment that her life would never be the same. She hadn't eaten since the previous morning, and the gnawing hunger had long since faded into a dull ache. As she walked the darkened streets, the events of the day replayed in her mind. The smug look on her manager's face, the way her coworker refused to meet her gaze. The termination papers sliding across the desk. "We have multiple witnesses who saw you take the money, Amara." She had never stolen a thing in her life, but it was her word against two liars. The flickering light of the bus stop came into view and she sank onto the bench, exhausted. Her thoughts drifted to Kai, her sweet, trusting son with his bright smile and his drawings of their little family. How could she tell him she had failed? A man sat down beside her, his breathing shallow and panicked. He was in his late 30s, his clothes worn and frayed. His hands shook as he counted a small pile of change, his face falling with each count. "Excuse me," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but do you have any spare change? I'm short for the bus fare." Amara looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw the tear tracks on his cheeks and the same desperate glaze in his eyes that she had seen in her own reflection. She opened her wallet. It was everything she had. Giving it to him meant a 4-mile walk home and an empty pantry for breakfast. But she couldn't turn away. She held out the money. "Here, take it." He stared at the bills as if they were a lifeline. "I can't. That's too much. Please," Amara insisted. "Just take it." His hands trembled as he accepted the money. "I don't know what to say. Thank you isn't enough." "It's okay," she said, though it was anything but. "I'm Jean," he said, wiping his eyes. "I promise I'll pay you back." Amara simply nodded, not believing him. People in desperate situations made promises they couldn't keep. The bus arrived and Jean boarded, leaving her alone under the dim streetlight. Kai was asleep when she finally got home. Her neighbor, Mrs. Gable, had given him dinner. She was one of the few kind souls left in Amara's life. Standing in Kai's doorway, watching him sleep, Amara whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby." She didn't sleep that night, just sat at her small kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. The knock came at 8 a.m. Amara opened the door to a sight that stole her breath. 5 black SUVs lined her street. Men in expensive suits stood by the vehicles, their expressions unreadable. Walking up her cracked sidewalk was Jean, the man from the bus stop. He was no longer the picture of desperation, but a figure of immense power. Dressed in a sharp black mafia suit and a pristine white-collared shirt, he was clearly a powerful Korean mafia boss. "Hello, Amara," he said. She could only stare, acutely aware of her worn clothes and the shabbiness of her apartment. "Who are all those people?" Kai asked from behind her, his eyes wide. Jean crouched down to Kai's level. "Hello. I'm Yin. I'm a friend of your mom's." "You look like a superhero," Kai said in awe. Jean smiled, then turned his attention back to Amara. "Last night I was robbed," he explained quietly. "They took everything. My car, my phone, my wallet. Left me stranded." He paused, his gaze intense. "I run an organization. A powerful one. Someone close to me set me up, wanting me vulnerable. They almost succeeded." "I don't understand," Amara said, her head spinning. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Jean said, his eyes locking with hers, "when I had nothing, you, a complete stranger, gave me everything you had." "It was $18. It was everything," Jean corrected. "And now I want to know why you did it." Amaris sank onto her couch. "I don't know, you looked like you were barely hanging on, and I know what that feels like. I couldn't just walk away. Even though you had just lost your job," Jean stated. "It wasn't a question. I do my research, Amara. I know you were framed. I know you're raising your son alone." He leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." The entire story spilled out of her. The struggle to provide for Kai. The lies that cost her her job. Jean listened intently. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "I need someone I can trust," he finally said. "Someone with integrity who does the right thing, even when it costs them everything. Come work for me, Amara. I am a powerful mafia boss, and I can give you the second chance you gave me." "You're offering me a job?" she asked, incredulous. "A real one," he confirmed. With a salary that will let you take care of Kai the way he deserves. I'm not doing this out of pity. I'm doing it because you showed me who you are. And that's exactly the kind of person I need in my organization. Amara looked at her son, then back at the formidable mafia boss offering her a lifeline. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll do it. Jean smiled, a genuine, warm smile this time. Good, because we have a lot of work to do. Amara's first day felt like stepping into another world. Jin's headquarters was a discreet, high-security building that hummed with quiet authority. People moved with a sense of purpose, their loyalty to the Korean Mafia boss palpable. Amara, in her simple dress, felt out of place. Jean met her in the lobby. Ignore the stairs, he said quietly. They don't know your strength. Come. He led her to a conference room where a stern-looking man sat reviewing documents. This is Minjun, my most trusted advisor, Jean said. Minjun. This is Amara. She's going to help us. Minjun looked her up and down, his skepticism clear. With all due respect, boss, what are her qualifications? She is someone I trust, Jean said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. That is more valuable than anything right now. They explained the situation. Jean had been lured to a meeting by his second-in-command, a man named Kwan. It was an ambush. Jean had escaped, but Kwan had taken control of a significant portion of his operations, using the chaos to steal money and resources. Kwan reported me missing, presumed dead, Jean said, his voice laced with cold anger. He was very concerned, very helpful. You think Kwan set you up? Amara asked. I know he did, Jean said. But I need proof before I move against him. If I'm wrong, I start a war within my own family. He slid a folder across the table. This is everything we have. Financial records, communications, surveillance reports. I need you to look at it with fresh eyes. Amara opened the folder. She may not have known the inner workings of a criminal organization, but she understood betrayal. She spent her days poring over the documents, looking for patterns for anything out of place. What she found was a web of deceit. Kwan had been systematically funneling money into offshore accounts for months. He was planning to take over, Amara told Jean one evening, spreading the evidence across his desk. The ambush was just the final step. He thought you were gone and he could consolidate his power before anyone realized what was happening. But I ran into you instead, Jean said softly. And you gave me the means to get back on my feet and start fighting back faster than he expected. We have enough to expose him to the other captains, Minjun said, joining them. More than enough, Amara agreed. Jean picked up his phone. Then let's end this. The downfall of Kwan was swift and brutal. With the evidence Amara had uncovered, Jean rallied his loyal followers and retook control of his organization. In the aftermath, the atmosphere in the headquarters shifted. The tension was gone, replaced by a renewed sense of loyalty to their mafia boss. And in the midst of it all, Amara had found her place. She was no longer just an outsider. She was a valued member of Jin's inner circle. People sought her counsel, respected her insights. For the first time in a long time, Amara felt like she was in control of her own destiny. Mommy, is Jean coming to my game? Kai asked, bouncing with excitement in his new soccer uniform. I don't know, sweetheart, Amara said. He's a very busy man. But as they arrived at the field, she saw him jogging across the parking lot, dressed in casual clothes, looking nothing like the formidable Korean mafia boss who commanded a criminal empire. Kai shrieked with joy and ran to him. Jean scooped him up in a hug. Of course I came, he said. I promised, didn't I? They sat together on the bleachers, Jean cheering louder than any other parent when Kai scored a goal. Afterward, they got ice cream and walked through the park. He's an amazing kid, Jean said. You're doing an incredible job with him. I'm trying, Amara replied. Jean was quiet for a moment. Amara, I grew up with nothing, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. I built my empire so I would never be powerless again. But watching you two, I think maybe I've been missing the point. What do you mean? Power means nothing if you're alone, he said. You have something I've been chasing my whole life. You have a family, love, a purpose beyond profits and territories. Amara's heart hammered in her chest. The lines between them had been blurring for weeks. Dinners after work, helping Kai with his homework. Sunday mornings spent at their tiny apartment. Kai had started drawing pictures of the three of them, and Amara, to her terror, had fallen in love with him, completely, irreversibly in love with a powerful mafia boss. She couldn't risk it, couldn't risk her heart or Kai's. But every time Jean smiled at her, every time he looked at Kai with such gentle affection, she felt herself drowning. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Kai drew another picture of their little family, with "My family" written in wobbly letters at the top. That night, after Kai was asleep, Amara sat in the dark, staring at the drawing. She couldn't keep pretending she had to tell Jean the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Saturday's game was against their biggest rivals. Jean arrived early with a poster he'd made with Kai's jersey number on it. He and Amara watched from the bleachers, the comfortable silence between them charged with unspoken emotions. When Kai scored the winning goal, Jean grabbed Amara's arm, his face alight with pure joy. In that moment, looking at him, she knew she couldn't keep her feelings inside any longer. After the game, while Kai was celebrating with his team, Amara turned to Jean. "I need to tell you something," she said, her hands trembling. "And I need you to just listen." She took a deep breath. "I'm in love with you. I know I shouldn't be. I know who you are, what you do, and that this is probably the craziest thing I could ever say. But I can't keep pretending. Kai draws pictures of us as a family, and my heart breaks a little more each time because I want it so badly it hurts." The silence stretched between them. "I understand. If this changes everything," she continued, her voice thick with emotion, "I'll do whatever you want. I just couldn't keep lying to you." "Are you finished?" he finally asked. She nodded, unable to speak. He stepped closer. "Good, because I've been waiting for 2 months for you to say that." "What? Amara, you are the most frustrating woman I have ever met," he said, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Do you think I come to every soccer game for just anyone? Do you think I spend my Sundays in your tiny apartment drinking bad coffee because I'm being charitable? I've been in love with you since the day you handed me your last dollar at that bus stop. Since you looked at me like I was a person who mattered, not just a mafia boss. You love me, yes. You idiot," he said, a sound that was half laugh, half sob escaping his lips. "I love you. I love Kai. I love the way you're kind even when the world has given you every reason not to be." And then he kissed her. Right there on the bleachers. He kissed her with a passion and a tenderness that left her breathless. Sitting on the bleachers at a local soccer field. The air smells like freshly cut grass and orange slices. The sun is starting to dip low, turning the sky into a giant canvas of orange and pink. All around you, parents are cheering, but for Amara, the world felt like it had gone completely silent. Sitting right next to her was Jean. To the rest of the world, he was a legend. A powerful, serious boss who ran a massive organization and lived in a world of high-tech offices and shiny black SUVs. But here, in his sneakers and a plain hoodie, he was just Jean. He was the man who had been showing up for every single practice, every rainy Saturday morning, and every bad coffee, breakfast at Amara's tiny kitchen table. Down on the field, Kai, Amara's son, was running as fast as his little legs could carry him. He kicked the ball, and swish. It flew right into the back of the net. The winning goal. Jean didn't just clap. He jumped up, grabbed Amara's arm, and let out a huge cheer, his face lighting up with the kind of pure, messy joy you usually only see on Christmas morning. In that moment, looking at the big, scary boss, acting like a kid because her son scored a goal, Amara felt something click in her heart. It was like a puzzle piece finally fitting into place. She couldn't keep her secret anymore. It was too big. It was bursting out of her. After the game, while Kai was busy high-fiving his teammates and covered in grass stains, Amara and Jean walked toward the edge of the bleachers. Amara's hands were shaking so hard she had to hide them in her pockets. "Jean, I need to tell you something," she said. Her voice was small, like a whisper that was trying to be brave. "And I need you to just listen until I'm done, okay?" Jean stopped walking. He looked at her with those deep, serious eyes. "Okay, I'm listening." Amara took a breath so deep it felt like she was trying to swallow the whole sky. "I'm in love with you," she blurted out. She didn't stop. She couldn't. If she stopped now, she'd lose her nerve. "I know it sounds totally bonkers. I know who you are. I know you're this powerful boss and I'm just me. I know our worlds are completely different. But I can't keep pretending anymore. Every time Kai draws a picture of us, You, me, and him. As a little family, my heart breaks. Because I want that picture to be real so badly it actually hurts. She looked down at her shoes, feeling her face turn bright red. There. I said it. If this makes things weird, or if you want me to leave your organization, I'll go. I just couldn't keep lying to you. I had to tell the truth. The silence that followed was the longest silence in the history of the universe. A bird chirped. A whistle blew in the distance. Amara held her breath, waiting for him to say he was sorry, but he didn't feel the same way. Are you finished? Jean finally asked. His voice was calm, but it sounded different. Tight. Amara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She felt like crying. Jean stepped closer. He stepped so close she could smell his peppermint gum. Good, he said, and she saw a tiny sparkle in his eye. Because I've been waiting for 2 months for you to finally say that. Amara's head snapped up. What? Amara, Jean said, and now she could see that his eyes were actually watery, like he was the one about to cry. You are the most frustrating, stubborn, amazing woman I have ever met. Do you honestly think I come to every single one of these soccer games just because I like soccer? I don't even know half the rules. He laughed, a short, shaky sound. Do you think I spend my Sunday mornings in your tiny apartment drinking that terrible, burnt coffee because I'm being nice? I hate bad coffee. Amara stood there, frozen, as Jean took her hands in his. I've been in love with you since that first night, he whispered. The night at the bus stop when you gave me your last $18. You didn't see a boss, or someone powerful. You just saw a person who was hurting, and you decided to help. You looked at me like I mattered when I had nothing left. He leaned his forehead against hers. You love me, she whispered, still not believing it. Yes, you little idiot, Jean said, laughing and crying at the same time. I love you. I love Kai. I love the way you are kind to everyone even though the world hasn't always been kind to you. You're the bravest person I know. And then, right there on the grass by the bleachers, with the soccer team cheering in the background and the sun finally setting, Jean kissed her. It wasn't a scary mafia boss kiss. It was a thank you for saving me kiss. It was a let's be a family kiss. Amara realized then that those $18 hadn't just bought a bus ticket for a stranger. They had bought a brand new life, a protector for her son, and a love story that was way better than anything she had ever seen in a movie. The poor mom who gave away her last bit of money was now the richest woman in the world, because she had a family that loved her for exactly who she was. When Jean kissed Amara on those old wooden bleachers, it wasn't just a regular kiss. It was like a giant neon sign flashing. New life starting now. It was a promise that the days of worrying about empty fridges and scary bills were gone forever. But, as they finally pulled apart, they realized they weren't alone. A few feet away stood Kai. He was wearing his grass-stained soccer jersey, holding a half-eaten orange, and his mouth was hanging open so wide you could have parked a toy car in it. Whoa, Kai whispered, his eyes bugging out. Does this mean Jean is my new dad? Jean didn't get awkward or shy. Instead, he let out a big, deep laugh, the kind of laugh that makes everyone else want to smile too. He reached out and pulled Kai into a huge bear hug. How about we start with boyfriend, and see how it goes, buddy? The wildflower question fast forward 1 month. The world felt like it had been painted in brighter colors. Amara wasn't working at that old place where people were mean to her. She was working by Jean's side, helping him run his giant company with her smart brain and kind heart. They were all hanging out in a beautiful park. The sun was warm on their backs, and Kai was running around in the tall grass, picking yellow and purple wildflowers. He spent a long time carefully weaving them together until he had made a messy, beautiful crown. For the queen, Kai shouted, plopping the flower crown onto Amara's head. Amara laughed, adjusting the flowers, but when she looked over at Jean, he wasn't laughing. He looked serious. Not scary boss, serious, but I'm about to say something super important, serious. Right there, on the grass, the powerful man in the expensive suit dropped down on one knee. Amara's heart did a somersault. Jean, what are you doing? I don't have a diamond ring yet, Jean said, and his voice sounded a little bit shaky, like he was nervous. Imagine that. A guy who faces down bad guys every day was nervous about talking to Amara. And I know this is happening fast. But in my life, I've lost so much time. I don't want to waste another second. Amara, will you marry us? Amara blinked, tears starting to blur her vision. Us, she whispered. Jean reached out and grabbed Kai's hand, pulling him close. We're a package deal, Jean said. I don't just want to be your husband. I want to be a family for this kid. I want us to be a team forever. Amara was crying now, but they were the best kind of tears. She was laughing through them. Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I'll marry you. Both of you. The wedding wasn't a giant, loud party with thousands of strangers. It was held in a secret, beautiful garden at Jean's big house. There were white roses everywhere, and the air smelled like magic. Kai was the ring bearer. He took his job very seriously. He wore a tiny tuxedo and marched down the aisle with a look of intense concentration, like he was carrying a bowl of soup that he couldn't spill. He made sure those rings got to Jean perfectly. As Amara walked down the grass aisle, she looked at Jean waiting for her. Her mind drifted back to that cold, dark night at the bus stop. She remembered how heavy that $18 felt in her pocket. She remembered thinking that by giving it away, she was losing everything. But standing there in her white dress, she realized she hadn't lost anything. By giving that money to a stranger, she had actually opened a door. She thought she was saving Jean, but in a way, his kindness and his love had saved her right back. She had given him $18, and in return, he had given her a future where she would never be scared again. You okay? Jean whispered as she reached him at the altar. Amara looked at him, then at Kai, then at the bright blue sky. I'm perfect, she said. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't just saying it. She really meant it. 6 months later, life was normal. But a good kind of normal. The three of them were walking through the same park where Jean had proposed. The evening sun was casting a golden glow over everything, making the trees look like they were made of gold. Kai was 10 yards ahead of them, chasing a bright blue butterfly and laughing. Amara leaned her head on Jean's shoulder. You know, she murmured, if you hadn't been tricked and robbed that night at the bus stop, we never would have met. Everything would be different. Jean squeezed her hand. I'm not giving the bad guys credit for our happiness, he joked. But you're right. I'm just saying, Amara said softly, sometimes the absolute worst, scariest moments of our lives are actually just the beginning of the very best things. Suddenly, Kai came sprinting back to them, his face red from running. He grabbed Jean's hand and Amara's hand, swinging between them. Hey, can we get pizza for dinner? Extra cheese. Please, please, please. Jean looked at Amara and winked. Whatever the vice president of pizza wants, he gets. As they walked toward their car, a normal family, on a normal evening, Amara thought about that $18 bill. It taught her a lesson she'd tell Kai when he was older. Sometimes, when you're at your lowest point, your story isn't over. It's just getting to the good part. Giving someone your last bit of hope doesn't make you poor. It makes you the kind of hero who deserves a happy ending. And Amara's happy ending. It was just beginning. I hope you loved this story. Would you like me to create a cool, family portrait, image of Amara, Jean, and Kai at the park to go with the ending?
Subscribe now, like, comment and share. For more. Subscribe now, like, comment and share. For more. Subscribe now, like, comment and share. For more.